If an argument is valid, it's truth-preserving in the sense that the form of the argument guarantees that the conclusion follows with certainty. You should realize, however, that there are multiple logical systems, each with different rules of operation. Historically, there have been two systems of logic that reflect the distinction between ancient and modern philosophy. Respectively, these are syllogistic and propositional logic. Syllogistic logic was more or less invented by Aristotle some 2,500 years ago. Propositional logic first came into its own around the dawn of the 20th century. Both are very powerful, but propositional logic has now assumed a much greater role in the modern world. Propositional arguments have a valid form, or a truth-preserving form, in virtue of the way entire statements are connected to one another in an argument. Syllogistic arguments have a valid form in virtue of the way certain terms within statements are related. These terms have well-known names such as quantifier, subject term, and predicate term, much like the grammatical elements found within a sentence. There are some handy cues for distinguishing between propositional and syllogistic arguments. If you see phrases such as either or and if then, the argument is probably propositional. On the other hand, if you see words that indicate quantity such as all, no, and some, you're probably looking at a syllogistic argument. You'll recall that a proposition is a statement that must be either true or false. It is a sentence that has a truth value. An argument is considered to be propositional if it represents an inference whose validity depends upon the logical relationship between entire statements. Take, for example, this argument. If my cell phone is ringing, then it is making noise. Second premise, my cell phone is ringing. Conclusion, so my cell phone is making noise. In this argument, the first premise is a conditional statement, that is, an if-then statement. Every if-then statement has two parts, an antecedent, the statement that follows the if, and the consequent, which is the statement that follows then. The second premise, namely, my cell phone is ringing, affirms what the antecedent asserts. This is a valid argument whose form we can represent as follows. If C then M, C, so, conclusion, M. This argument is famously valid. It is known as modus ponens, or affirming the antecedent. Here's another propositional argument, that is, an argument whose validity depends upon the logical relationships between statements. If there is growth, then the economy is recovering, but the economy is not recovering, so there is no growth. This argument is also a variant of a conditional argument, that is, it uses the if-then connective in one of its premises. Take a look at its form. If G, then E, not E, conclusion, not G. Here we have a denial of the consequent, which is a valid form of conditional argument known as modus tollens. This concludes the segment. Please continue to the next.